So we're moving along at a steady pace and we're allowing the Lord to define and direct us. And we're putting that into discipline. And then the train goes off the rails because God's redirecting us, or He changes the path, or what we think is working, He decides to prune away. And friends, I'm here to tell you, it's not easy, right? But to cultivate consistency is about pruning and progress. And so we're going to finish up this series on consistency with this last piece of this pattern. We've been talking about this pattern of consistency is praying and allowing the Lord to define and direct us and putting that into discipline, and then allowing His development. And if you've been following along and you haven't already downloaded the 4 Keys document, please go do that. It is my gift to you at erinharrigan.com/4keys. And this week we're talking about pruning and progress and development. But let's go back a little bit and remind ourselves what it means to be consistent and why consistency is so important as we seek to build a thriving kingdom business. And from the beginning, we've been talking about that our consistency honors the Lord, that it demonstrates our commitment and our trust in Him, that it actually changes the landscape of our business, like that consistent flow or drip of water that can create a path through a canyon, right? And that in our consistency, people build trust in us and they see that we show up even in the hard times, and we demonstrate to the world that because we lean into the Lord, that we develop endurance and perseverance to keep going. That's what we're going to talk about this week. And that consistency is about being enduring and unchanging. And we've talked about that the Lord our God and Jesus, that they're the model of consistency for us, right? And that when allowing Him to define and direct us, and then we can be consistent and diligent and putting that into action with discipline. And that the point of being consistent is so that there is no discrepancy between what we say and what we do, that the way that we serve our clients and our products and our services matches what our sales page says, matches what our website says it will do. Have you ever done business with a person or a company or an organization and like what they promised just is not what gets delivered, right? That's an incongruence. And us being consistent is about eliminating any discrepancy between what we say and what we do. So you're probably hearing the fire engines in the background right now. That's right across the street from my house. But we're going to continue because consistency, right? Okay. So I said this quote last week, but I want to bring it back out that Bishop T.D. Jakes shared in a social media post back in 2019, I think, when I was writing my book, that the strength is in the repeat, not in the retreat. And so what does it have to do with pruning? Well, here in Maryland, we have trees called crepe myrtle trees. First of all, I need to preface this by saying I am not a plant person, not at all. And I don't know, I think it's fall, but at some point during the year, it is pruning season. And they prune the branches. And the poor tree, like it's a skeleton of a tree by that point. What fascinates me every year about God's creation is that every year the trees bloom, right? And that they prune away the branches that aren't producing blooms, but they also prune the branches that are producing them so that they may produce more, right? And then the trees grow and they flourish. Well, the same is true for us in our businesses, that the strength in our consistency happens because God is constantly molding and pruning us, and we're allowing Him to do that. And that's how we develop. You know, you've heard me talk about this 4 keys and that it's a circle. And that's purposeful because it's like a closed loop in business, right? We take what we learn from being defined and directed by the Lord and we put that into action, and then we learn things as we take action, and that allows us to develop so that every single time we go into the process with more knowledge and understanding and wisdom. We can only do that when we're pruned from the things that aren't working, and that the things that are working are also pruned so that they can produce more fruit. So that's what this consistency piece is all about. But first, we're going to start in James 1, verses 2 through 4, because there is no development, there is no progress without pruning, without challenge. In fact, it's in the challenge that we likely learn the most to be more effective in our business. And this is what James says: My brethren, count it all joy when you fall into various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience. But let patience have its perfect work, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. He goes on to talk about perseverance and not doubting in faith. But what Dr. Charles Stanley says about this is that the key to finding joy in the midst of adversity is about our focus. Are we focused on the cut of the pruning? Or are we focused on the progress that will happen because of it? God promised to work in and through us to strengthen our faith and bring us into closer fellowship with Him and teach us endurance, because we need endurance. This redefining of hustle and pursuing success God's way takes endurance because it looks different than the world. But yet, the Lord calls us to be His co-laborers, and what an incredible opportunity we have to allow Him to prune us for progress and cultivate consistency. So in 1 Corinthians 3:9, this is what Paul says. Let me get there. Here we are. For you are God's fellow workers. You are God's field. You are His building. We are His co-laborers. We are His ambassadors. And when I was researching my book, I came across this really incredible passage from Amy Groeschel. Her husband is Craig Groeschel, and he's pastor of Life Church, I believe, in Oklahoma City. And it was this article. I'm going to have the link in the show notes. But if you're watching this on YouTube, which, by the way, did you know you can watch the podcast on YouTube? That link is right here on the screen. But this is what Amy says. The fact that we are called and set apart by God to bear His name is pretty special, unfathomable, actually. It's absolutely incredible that God invites us to co-labor with Him. His calling never stops at our salvation. His calling doesn't stop the day that we receive Christ. Receiving Christ is only the beginning. God calls us, imperfect as we are, to do His will here on earth. God has literally invited us to join Him in a kingdom partnership to spread the good news of His grace and freedom made available to all. Friends, it is only through consistency and our stick-to-itiveness and our tenacity to keep going that we're able to experience the beauty of being God's co-laborers. And it's through this consistency that we cultivate, that we become better at our work, that we better understand our client, that we better understand our audience, that we become even more clear on whom we're serving. In 2021, I did a lot of work around rebranding and getting very clear on who it is that I serve. And I help ambitious Christian businesswomen over the age of 40, generally, to tune out the world, to tune into God's truth, and to turn up focus to build a thriving kingdom business. And I do that through my one-on-one and group coaching, my speaking, my podcast, and my writing. Now, that may sound really clear to you, and today it's very clear. But last year, I wasn't so clear in that. Why? Because God was continuing to work on me. And guess what? He's still working on me. He's still working on you, friend. But it's only through allowing this cultivation of our consistency, this pruning for progress, that we get to continually grow, that our businesses can morph and change the way that He wants them to, leading us to even greater impact and greater results. But we cannot do that if we don't allow the pruning. This consistency, as we talked about, that elimination of the incompatibility between our walk and our talk, that consistency is only cultivated in the pruning and in the development. So this is what it says in John 15, 1 and 2. And as I talked about previously, John 15, 4 and 5 are the foundational verses for my Hustle with Heart business. This is what he says in verses 1 and 2. I am the vine, I am the true vine. My Father is the vine dresser. In other words, my Father is the one that cultivates the vine. Every branch in me that does not bear fruit, he takes away. The Lord takes away. And every branch that bears fruit, he prunes. Oh, so painful, right? That it may bear more fruit. God allows difficulty because our nourishment comes from the living vine of Jesus. And when we abide in him, when we are enmeshed with him and aligned to him, he produces fruit through us. But sometimes we allow ourselves to be distracted by the shiny things and the squirrels in life. So God prunes those extra things out of the way that hinder us so that we will be free to bear a better harvest. We've got to go through this pruning. We've got to go through this development. And the only way to do that is cultivating our consistency and allowing him to define and direct us, and then taking the action of discipline so that we can develop. That is all part of being consistent. If we stopped it at the discipline and we said, no, 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 Lord, I'm good. Can you imagine what would not unfold? Can you imagine the legacies and the lives in the kingdom that wouldn't be impacted? That would, it would cut it off, right? And sometimes we do that. And yet he is so consistent to love us and welcome us back anyway. It is so beautiful. It is so, so beautiful. Okay, let's go to Romans 12:2. And this is what it says. No, 12:12. I'm sorry, not 12:2, 12:12. Rejoice in hope, be patient in tribulation, continue steadfastly in prayer. What is the point? That we can be hopeful in this process, that even when we don't see the results right away, which I'm going to get to in just a second, that we can be hopeful that there is progress being made, because you never know what that little step would be. Remember, in our very first episode this month, I shared the Craig Rochelle quote: small disciplines done consistently lead to big results over time. Because anybody can do anything once, but it's in our consistency that we begin to see the true results of what the Lord wants for us. But here's our challenge. We want the progress without the pruning. I mean, who else is raising their hand here, right? We want progress without pruning. We want to cut the consistency off at the discipline. I did the work. Please don't take that away. Please don't touch that. You know, the same thing happened to me in my business as God was pruning me to do coaching and speaking on redefining hustle and pursuing success God's way. I have a network marketing business, and he was pruning it away and he was taking it out of the way. And you know what? I prayed that he would take it away from me. Just take it, Lord. But that was not his plan. He just pruned it a little bit and was like, leave this in my hands. I'm the vine dresser. I'm going to take care of this. I need you to go to work over there. But we want the progress without the pruning. And friends, that just doesn't happen in the kingdom. That's just not how he's made us. But man, if we can lean into that and let him lead. I was talking about that last weekend at my Leading Lady Be Led half-day retreat. If you were there, I'm so happy to have had you. If you couldn't make it because you don't live close by, I promise you there will be more. I might be taking it on the road. But we talked about this, like leaning into the Lord. And what does that mean? And it's allowing that pruning. We have to allow that. Because remember, we talked about this last week, that when we move forward in faith, allowing him to have his way with us, that we will have no idea how God will move in power on our behalf, but we can be sure that he will move on our behalf. It takes endurance. I know that. It takes those moments where we think this isn't working and I just want to quit. And I want to encourage you to keep going. I said this in my blog a few weeks ago. It's okay to quit for 24 hours. I know that's an unpopular thing, but it's okay to quit for 24 hours. Just don't quit forever. That's the moment where we have to lean into the Lord and pray and say, Lord, what is your insight in the situation? Show me what I am not seeing. Show me what needs to be pruned. What do you want me to learn from this? What do you want me to understand about you and your work in my business? You know, he calls us to do hard things for him and his glory. And here's the thing as we finish up, I could just tell you to pick up your big girl pants, pull them up, and keep going. But actually, here's what I want to say to you: pull out your big Bible, lean into your big God, and keep going. Allow Him to develop you, allow Him to take your consistency and cultivate it. I cannot wait to hear how this series has resonated with you. I want to remind you that I did record that previous episode, The Call to Consistency, episode 104 in June of 2021. So go back and give a listen to that. I would love for you to join me on Voxer. It's a place I love to hang out and communicate with my audience and my clients. So go find me on Voxer. If you're watching this on YouTube, that link is on the screen or it's in the show notes if you're listening to this. And leave me a message. Let me know how this resonated with you. Leave me questions, and then I'll add you to my private podcast hangout, which is just a group on Voxer where I share additional tidbits and additional content, and I answer your questions. So go find me on Voxer. And as always, if you would please leave a review, screenshot this, share it on social, tag me, because there are so many amazing women who struggle with consistency. They struggle with understanding how the Lord can lead them. They struggle with the idea of, could they be like adrenalized by the hustle, but is there another way to do it? And how do you pursue success God's way? And that's what we're talking about, biblical business truth right here. So please leave a review and screenshot and share it in all the things. And go get yourself that 4 keys. Let me put that here again. It's in the show notes, erinharrigan.com, 4 keys. And be on the lookout, because we're getting ready to plan our next 90 days, and my 90-day tool is going to be available as well. And you can download that and walk through the actual 90-day mission planning exercise that I do with my Rooted group coaching members. So you can do that with us on your own using that tool. And you can find that at erinharrigan.com/90-day tool. All right, everybody. Thank you. I cannot wait to see you next time on the episode. We're going to be talking about fulfillment in the month of February, and where does our fulfillment actually come from in business. And I think I might open some eyes and ruffle some feathers, and also give us solace and serenity. So I'll see you then.